So I think fighting against that stereotype of the standard Christian politician is a definite challenge, but breaking that stereotype is like a life goal of mine. So I'm happy to do the work.
So my handy Ballotpedia page does not give me a religious breakdown for congressional districts, but I know within Alabama, the percentage of people who are self-identified as Christian is very high, 86%. Is that roughly the same within the district that you're in?
Yes, I think so. Yes, it's a very religious and overwhelmingly Christian district. So I do think it's going to be a strength. I think that's an area where people on both sides of the aisle can relate and feel like there is some common ground there. And I hope that that is a way that I can have some conversations that Democrats haven't been able to have in this district in the past. Being a very religious person, I think opens some doors to me that wouldn't be open to someone else.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I spend a lot of time looking at candidates' websites in general, just all over the country, all levels of government. And I've noticed that looking at the pages of candidates in Alabama, and I primarily look at Democratic candidates, that many of them do talk about their religion in a way that you're not likely to see Democrats in Chicago, where I am, talking about religion, that's not something that Democrats, they may very well be religious, but it's not something they're likely to highlight in a place like Chicago or Southern California in a way that clearly in Alabama is something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah. In that sense, I might not be a very good candidate, a very good Democratic candidate in another place because I don't think it's the typical way of talking, but I can't help it. When I speak in public, it sounds an awful lot like preaching because that's the speaking tradition out of which I come. And I spend a lot of time in churches, meeting with people and hearing from people about what they want in their next representative. And it changes the dynamic of a conversation when people know that I'm an ordained minister and that I approach them with that pastoral lens. I think the pastoral lens is a big part of the representative's job. We think about Congress as being the people who vote, but an equally large part of the job is constituent services and taking care of the people in your home district. So, I think that's a sort of a underrated part of what it means to be a congressional representative and a part that I would take very seriously. I want to sit with people and hear from them about their concerns, their anxieties, their fears, and respond to people first and foremost on that emotional level of what is it that drives you? What is it that makes you scared about tomorrow? What is it that makes you hopeful about the future? And connecting with people on that level first before getting into conversations about particular political positions, I think really helps to keep lines of communication open that otherwise are cut off simply by virtue of being in different political parties.
One of the topics that, of course, has been in the news so much lately is guns and gun reform. Historically, of course, places that are very red and places that are in the South, have a lot of a big gun culture around them. Are guns something that you are discussing in your campaign? Is it something that your constituents are talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel passionately about protecting all lives. I believe that all lives are sacred, and I want to take seriously our obligation as elected representatives to protect people and make sure that they are safe wherever they are within society. So I take that very seriously, and for that reason, I have not shied away from talking about gun reform. And I don't think that the conversation needs to be tense all the time. I don't think that this is a conversation on which there can't be any compromise or pleasant resolution found. I support the Second Amendment, and I recognize that the Supreme Court has ruled that there is an individual right to carry a gun. And yet the Supreme Court also said that the government is allowed to put regulations on that to regulate both who can have a gun and where and when they can carry those guns and under what circumstances. So I think there's a way here where we can protect that individual right to a gun And I certainly understand why people care about their guns. I think there is truth in the argument that there are good people out there who want a gun in order to be helpful, in order to make others more safe. And I think we should honor that instinct, that good and noble instinct to want to protect people, protect your own home, and protect those around you. And so I think it's a shame when the conversation gets stuck there and acting like guns can never be a force for good. So I think there is a solution, and I've tried to talk. I published an op-ed in a very conservative news outlet here in Alabama about guns, and knowing that that it was the conservative news outlet, but trying to start an honest dialogue about how we can move forward, respecting that there are good points to be made on both sides of this argument. I was disappointed that I didn't get the kind of feedback that I hoped for. Disappointed, but not surprised. But I think that we have to do that. We have to continue to suggest solutions to problems that aren't purely partisan solutions. And I hope to do that both on the guns issue and on many other issues that face our district.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like us to know either about you or about the 2nd District?
So education is also a top priority issue in this district, as it is in many places across the U.S., because we don't often send students to college. And in part, that's because our schools aren't always preparing children for college, which is one issue that we need to address. But another issue is that not every young adult needs to go to college. And there are plenty of good job options and career pathways that don't involve college. And we need to really make a better effort to support those here in Alabama. And what I'd like to see is us approach education as an infrastructure issue. We talk a lot about roads and bridges. We see bridge collapses like the one recently in Florida, and we recognize how important infrastructure is, because it is how we get people safely from place to place and how we get goods to market. And education should be part of that infrastructure conversation. Our public education system is how we get children, is how we get people from childhood to adulthood. And it's an extremely important transitional time in a person's life. And I'd like to see us talking about it as part of infrastructure packages, making sure that we both are supporting the physical buildings, which too often in Alabama are crumbling, falling apart, unable to be heated or cooled because they're so poorly made or maintained. But also to think about those, our teachers and our school administrators, as being part of our basic infrastructure in the same way that police and fire services are. These are critical services and need to be treated as such.
And how can people find out more about your campaign and throw you some money if they'd like to?
People can come find me at TabithaIsner.com. So that is www.TabithaIsner.com, spelled TabithaIsner.com. I hope you come check out my website. And they can also find me on Facebook at Tabitha Isner for Congress, Instagram at Isner 2018, Twitter at Tabitha K. I'm active in all those places and love to hear from folks. So I hope you'll come find me and drop me a few dollars.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and I am here in this segment with Danner Kline, who is running for U.S. Congress in the 6th District of Alabama. Hello, Danner.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Thanks so much for coming on.
I'm glad to be here.
To start, could you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're coming from, and why you've decided to run for Congress now?
I am a first-time candidate for any elected office. I do have some experience in the world of politics because back in 2004, I founded a grassroots organization here in Alabama focused on changing the laws regulating beer, which seems like kind of a small thing. But what we did is we removed several state-level restrictions that, for all intents and purposes, made the brewing industry impractical. So we didn't really have any breweries back then. And in light of the successes that organization had, we now have about 30 breweries across the state. And that has it's directly created hundreds of jobs. It has indirectly helped create thousands of jobs. It has an economic impact of hundreds of millions of dollars a year on the state economy. So while it seems like kind of a silly thing to focus on changing some beer laws, it really has been a very significant change for the state in a good way that has really been, it's had a big impact. It's revitalized neighborhoods. It's helped revitalize downtown. So I'm very proud of that. And while I was doing all of that, my day job was telecom industry. I was doing technology networking stuff first for Southern Progress, which publishes Southern Living magazine, and then later for a local municipal government. And all this work on the grassroots changing laws stuff was volunteer. And that led to me getting a job in the beer industry for a wholesaler, it's been a lot of fun, but it was never anything that I envisioned myself doing for the rest of my life. Making the progress in the world of getting state laws changed, just the effort of making a difference and of helping people and helping the economy and helping do good through legislative change stuck with me. And that's kind of been in the back of my mind for a long time. And then Donald Trump got elected. Mm-hmm. And I really started doing some soul searching on what our country is, where it's going. And I started looking at my own congressman, who currently was then and remains Gary Palmer, is the representative in this district. And I looked at the history of the district, and I looked at what Democrats had and had not been doing here, mostly had not been doing anything at all. And I realized there was an opportunity for somebody with my experience of organizing to make a serious challenge against an entrenched Republican incumbent in this environment. With all of the resistance movements going on, all of the people getting involved, all of volunteering, I knew that if there was going to be a chance to flip a deep red district like this, and make no mistake, this is one of the reddest districts in the country. I think the last time I checked, the old Cook report had it ranked number 13 or somewhere in that ballpark. So it's very, very, very red. But I would argue that it is that red because nobody has been putting any effort into it. There has been no organizing. Presidential campaigns don't do any sort of get out the vote effort around here because they think it's a lost cause. So with nobody investing in it, nobody putting any effort into it, it's not surprising that it looks that crazy red. And I think this year we have the best chance we've had in 25 years to shock the country and actually flip it.
That would be terrific. So when I look at the map, it looks like the 6th district is kind of in the middle of the state. So there are 7 total districts in Alabama. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And so the 6th is this very strangely shaped, looks like someone's like holding an axe or something, right in the middle of the state. And looks like it sort of goes around the city of Birmingham. So is this mostly suburban regions then that encompass the 6th?
Yes, it is. When you look at it on a map, it is deceiving because just in terms of square mileage, it appears to be heavily rural. And in terms of area, it is very much dominated by rural